What's one piece of advice that would have saved you a lot of time and trouble if somebody had told you at the beginning of your healing journey? I'm Tony from Love Tony V, and this is day 3 of the Life After Loss 30-day storytelling journey where I'm sharing my stories in hopes that it will help you to get from wherever you are to wherever you want to go. And the advice that I wish I had gotten at the beginning of my healing journey was around getting therapy. So, in day 1 and 2, I have shared about the loss of my son 21 years ago. And I shared yesterday in day 2 how I didn't get help. I just threw myself back into my life. And again, at the time, my life was pretty rocky, and I was trying to hold on to my apartment. I was trying to find a job, and that became my immediate focus. And it wasn't until I did get the job with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and I had some amazing coworkers who actually went to therapy that I even considered that that was something that might help me. And again, kind of the circle and the community that I come from, therapy was not something that was really necessarily talked about or encouraged. It just wasn't kind of a thing. And I think culturally, I come from a place where you have these difficulties, you have these struggles, and you have your faith and you have resilience and you just make it through. It's just, what you do. I'm also a huge reader, so I mean, I always have books for sure. But in terms of therapy, it was definitely stigmatized in, again, kind of my circle and my community. And when I engaged with kind of the coworkers that I'm talking about, I really looked up to them. They were older than me, but still youngish. And I remember my one coworker had gone through a divorce, and that's what prompted her to go to therapy. And of course, we're talking about it. And I was just like so taken aback that she, one, admitted that she went to therapy, and she was just so free with it. And I was like, you have a therapist? And she's like, oh, yes, yes, I got a therapist. And come to find out, quite a few of my coworkers had the same therapist in Detroit who's amazing. And it was because I looked up to her, and it was because I admired her, and she seemed so polished and put together and balanced and grounded, and I wanted to be like that. And she made it like kind of cool. And so I did start, and it was transformative for me. I am a staunch believer in therapy. I go now. I will always keep a therapist, not necessarily because there's anything wrong or I'm in crisis, but I think it's so, so, so helpful for you to have support in your life. We have our friends, we have our loved ones, but it's unfair for them to shoulder the burden of all the ups and downs of our lives, and especially when they're not trained mental health professionals. So they have bias towards us. They were there for some of the stories that we're struggling with, or some of the times that we're struggling with. And I just think it's so helpful to have somebody who's neutral but wants the best for you in your corner to help you in the form of therapy, counsel, if that's spiritual, whatever that looks like. But I do think that you need somebody to help you navigate life's losses. And that was something that became a baseline for me throughout my life. And again, has been my anchor throughout the many losses that I've experienced since then, navigating again all of those childhood upbringing things that affect us all in different ways and show up as an adult. It's just been so helpful. Now, fortunately, we are in a time where therapy has been destigmatized for the most part. I Not necessarily for the most part, I can't say that, but it's been a lot more prevalent and acceptable, and I don't think that people give you a crazy look anymore when you say that you go to therapy, because again, there's so many people who are dynamic and vibrant, who are open and willing to share about how it's helped them. And that is definitely something that I do and have done in my circle and with the people that I help around their losses. That is going to be the first recommendation that I give you. If you do not have a therapist and you're going through transition, going through loss, you're just struggling in life, please, please, please avail yourself of that resource. If you, again, have a job where you have insurance, it's covered through your insurance. If you have your employee assistance program, many times you get a certain amount of sessions for that. If you've lost somebody and you have life insurance, many of the insurance companies also provide a set number of sessions. If those are not options for you, then look into community health organizations which provide therapeutic mental health services on sliding scales or free, different nonprofits. But just open yourself up to getting help, getting support, and doing what you need to do to make that happen. Again, for me, as I navigate my life, the ups and downs, it has been truly an anchor, like I said, that has kept me grounded and has helped me to not self sabotage and to undo the work that I've done. In terms of relationships, in terms of finances, in terms of, again, mental health or emotions. And of course, the loss that I experienced, as well as, like I said, subsequent losses. I just don't know how I would function without my therapist. I really don't, and I don't want to find out. So I definitely wish that at the time that I experienced that particular loss 21 years ago, that the culture was where it is now, again, where it's destigmatized and a lot more accessible. There is the platform therapyforblackgirls.com. They have an amazing directory of therapists that are nationwide, and you can see their specialties. I found my current therapist on Psychology Today. And you may need to, kind of try out a few folks. It's not the easiest, again, just with our medical system in the United States, it's not the easiest to navigate all the time. So you may have to reach out to a few practitioners and, see who responds, see if you can do a consultation with them or, book a first session to kind of understand their style, their background, how they work with you. My therapist is not, kind of one size fits all, and different people have different preferences. Some people want somebody who's from their same cultural background. I value that. Other people want somebody who's totally different from them so that they don't kind of attribute certain things based on our shared cultural experiences, and they come to the practice with more perceived neutrality. So you may have to, again, kind of try out a few people. Definitely reach out to your circle and get recommendations. See if anybody has somebody that they like working with. Of course, now we have the age of social media. So, right here on YouTube, as well as TikTok and Instagram, you have all kinds of therapists who are sharing their content, who are giving you a behind the scenes kind of look into how they work with clients and what their approach is. As well as, if that's not an option, there's also loss specific resources. So for grief specifically, there are groups. So Grief Share is one that's usually held at churches, is free, typically covered by sponsorships, scholarships, or very low cost. And that is a 13-week series, kind of with other people who are experiencing losses. The thing that I'll say about Grief Share is that it is heavy, heavy, heavy Christian. So if that is not your faith tradition, or you are not able to resonate with kind of, traditional Christian beliefs and concepts and language, I would not necessarily recommend that for you. I would try to find something that's not so faith based. But if that's not a problem for you, then it could be very, very helpful. There's also groups, like I said, loss specific. So for pregnancy loss associated with the hospital that you may have been receiving your care at, they may have support groups. I know mine definitely did. And there may be, again, nonprofits that have support resources and groups. It just really takes you to kind of raise your hand and say, I am looking for this resource. Can anybody help me? And 9 times out of 10, there's somebody who has a resource that can help you. So that is the piece of advice that I wish I had gotten a lot sooner, because it was so pivotal and it was so transformative once I did embrace therapy and commit myself to the process, and finding and working with a therapist and learning tools that I have used again throughout my life around my thinking, around how I attribute meaning to my experiences, to how I handle conflict, and just all of the tools that I've learned have just again made me the radiant person that I stand before you today as. So that's my piece of advice. I'm curious, what would be yours? What would be a piece of advice that if somebody was in your shoes, when you had your loss, that you wish somebody would have told you? I'd love to know. So let me know. Also, subscribe to this series so you can get notified of updates as we move through the journey. And so I cannot wait until the next installment. And always, I hope this was helpful.